Started with you.
We are going to get started again. So I would like to call the Board of Education work session for May 15th to order. First up is approval of our agenda.
Can I make a motion to adjust the agenda to move our student project highlight first in front of the mental health survey and supports?
So we have a motion on the table to move our student project highlight before our mental health survey. The student's been here and waiting for a while.
I'll support that.
Support that.
Please, Mr. Davis. Oh, I'm sorry.
Support from
Mr. Davis.
second. Support from Ken. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
All right, so first up is our teaching and learning future and our student project highlight.
Yes, so much like the student, Millie Bender from Park Elementary, that we recognized Thursday evening for her outstanding service and dedication to veterans, we have another student that we would like to recognize tonight. In fact, as we continue to hear about just the inspiring things that our students are doing across the district, Dr. Vanderjack and I have even had conversation about how we may expand some of this recognition of these student projects in the coming years in some similar ways. So I would like to introduce Madeline Murchison. She is a 10th grader here at the high school. Robin, did you happen to pass out the packets of Madeline's project? And she is being recognized this evening. She has been working on a Girl Scout Gold Award to support all HPS families. So she requested a meeting with Mr. Beal and I, sure you can go over here, with Mr. Beal and I in the fall, and shared with us what her Girl Scout Gold Award was and that she has a real passion about. And so she has spent the year working on the packet that you see in front of you. And I'll turn it over to Madeline at this time. Thanks for being here, Madeline.
Thank you. I would like to thank you guys for being here. I know this creates really long days. I myself have been here since 7 this morning due to sports and school. So first of all, a Gold Award project is a project that a high school Girl Scout works on. It consists of at least 80 service hours. I'm above that already. And they have to do something to make a sustainable impact on our community. In the fall, stuff was coming out about having to choice read and what you need to pick for your books. So that inspired me to create this. I made a bunch of different flyers and resources for parents to help guide their families and students in choosing good book selections. So this is to help parents and families in general have their kids pick books that they approve of and that they like so that we can foster a love for learning in all of our students.
Is this similar to like what a Boy Scout would work on for the Eagle Scout?
Yes, this is the Girl Scout equivalent of the Eagle Scout.
So are you real close together within your?
Yes, so the only thing I have left really is what will happen in the fall.
I know it's a lot of work, so congratulations.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty in depth.
Yeah.
Great idea. Well done.
Thank you.
Where is this information shared, or how?
So we haven't started sharing it yet.
Okay.
I've been creating them over the past school year, so we
Okay,
haven't distributed them that. We're still discussing how we're going to distribute it in the
Okay.
fall and upcoming, but
okay, posted on the website, or
Probably,
whatever,
yeah.
okay, excellent.
Oh, go for it.
Sorry, there's a lot of the rest of them. So the plan is at the elementary level to distribute the papers printed with their beginning of the year packet. And then in the secondary level, middle school and 5-6 building might be printed, but at the high school level, it would be shared electronically at the beginning of each try by English teachers, the teachers who are having the students do their choice reading. So much like they share now their information about their classroom library and their process, that's how that will be shared out.
It's awesome.
Gotcha. Yeah, nice work.
Just a question, just curious, do you have a favorite author or book?
I don't know. I like to read a lot, so there's like a lot of things, but I personally like to read a lot of James Patterson.
Yes.
Yeah. If you ever run across Walker Percy, Nobody knows about him. He's a great American author, died in 1999, I believe. He's a great writer.
Okay, thank you for the
Author person,
recommendation.
author person.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations for doing that. I would like to say, we do have a small token appreciation, a little certificate that we'd like to hand you for the work on this. I think it's important. We want to recognize the work that you're doing. So, on behalf of the district, thank you for representing the student body well and
Yes,
to making sure that you can read the short chapters in James Patterson's book.
exactly. Thank you.
Get home and get some dinner now, you probably started.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alright, next is our mental health survey and supports.
So Dr. Vanderdeck is going to help pull up our PowerPoint for you, but in your board packets, you received the aggregate data from our fall survey at the middle school and high school level. So we won't delve into all of those slides, they're quite detailed. They were put together by one of our middle school counselors, Mrs. Herman, and she did a wonderful job with that. She's been able to do some kind of comparisons across two data sets, so really impressive. So our goal today is just to provide an overview. I know that one of the statistics from that fall survey was shared with you in the Statosphere in a previous version. And we just thought we would expand upon that to provide some context, both on where the data came from, and then also what we're doing to respond to that. So we're just going to cover the history of the survey, current supports, and next steps. So this slide, if you go to the next one, just shows the history. So coming out of COVID, there was something called the Return to Learn Plan. And part of that plan was set up for districts to make sure they met compliance for both in-person learning and online learning. And a piece of that was the requirement for school districts to have a screener measure to check in with students on their social emotional health. And so that was the origin, and so in the blue bars, you'll see our fall 2020 data with our first set. A group of people came together to identify what questions would make the most sense, using other available surveys to use questions that had been vetted prior. You'll see the orange is our fall 2021 and our yellow is the fall 2022. And the packet that you have is all the fall 2022 data. So you'll see in a lot of areas our percentages have stayed roughly within 5 percentage points with some anomalies on the different scales. These percentages represent students who responded either often or sometimes experiencing those symptoms. So you'll see on the next slide, this is looking grade by grade across items, question items. So what this data was sharing with the group was that we really want to pay attention to those transition years, both as students enter middle school grades as well as we see the trends that as they get closer to graduation, they may be experiencing some of these indicators more often. And we just want to lean into that as we know that those transition times can be difficult for any student, but certainly as we look at their social emotional health, they may be experiencing these pieces of the puzzle a bit more. So this graph shows how students are experiencing excessive worry or fear as disaggregated by hours of sleep. I don't think that this will be surprising to anyone. Sleep is super important, but certainly for some of our students who are sleeping 4 hours or less, we see that upwards of 50% of them are reporting that they're often experiencing excessive worry or fear. And so this just comes back to a teaching and learning opportunity to talk to how our physical health is connected to our mental health. You can go to the next slide. This again talks about experienced worry or fear and is connected to social media use. Again, this is probably a statistic you've seen in many other formats, but obviously students who are have 3+ hours a day on social media experience this attribute of mental wellness more often than not. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Bernard, who's going to share a little bit about some of our current supports.
Good evening, everybody. You can go to the next slide. Awesome, thank you. So just an overview of some of the supports that we have in the district. This should come as no surprise. I'm sure many of you have met all of these lovely people in our buildings, but at our secondary level, we have our school counselors, and at all levels, we have our school social workers, our school psychologists, we have our PBIS specialists. This year we added 2 at our middle school level, which has been amazing for them to come alongside of the work that we had started and invested in our elementary level. We also have district behavior coaches, and we also this year had the awesome opportunity of expanding our reach across the district with our OCSN, so Ottawa Community Schools Network, our coordinators in partnership with the ISD. And the purpose of that role, just because it's a little unique from some of the other roles that maybe you know more about, I presented, I think it was in June, to you about the role of the coordinator, and what they do is they work with our families to remove barriers to educational success. So whether it's housing insecurity or food insecurity, access to community resources, they're amazing, and it's an awesome partnership that we have. So we're really thankful that we've been able to expand that reach across the district this year. So some of the other ways in which we are supporting student mental health is building our staff capacity. And we know that education of our staff is equally as important to supporting our students' own mental health. So some of the ways in which we've done that this year and in years prior is hosting data dialogues. So it's taking a look at some of our available data sets in the buildings, whether it's the screener data that Mandy just shared with you, and our staff looking at grades and how students are performing academically, and then also taking a look at some of our behavioral points of data that we have available as well. So one of the things that we've done this year at one of our middle schools is we took a look at all of those data sets, and we were able to take a look at trends across the building and then talk as a staff about what ways can we support these students, whether they're experiencing social, emotional, or behavioral indicators. The other thing that we're doing is we're really looking at strategic intervention, and we're diving in to diagnose what is really going on for a student. It's really difficult to support intervention and support if you don't really understand what you're supporting. So it's looking at the root cause and making sure that we're really intentional about the support and intervention that we're providing to students. Another opportunity is professional learning. So throughout the year, we have periodic Eagle U offerings. One of the offerings this year was partnering with our EAP with Pine Rest. We brought in a therapist from Pine Rest to speak with our staff about stress and anxiety. And not only was it awesome for our staff to hear about their own stress and anxiety and ways to cope and deal with that, it's also transferable in the classroom as well in supporting our students. And so having them come in was a really great partnership. Our high school also brought in that offering in one of our seminars that students can select to attend to learn more about how stress and anxiety impacts them as a student, which was really awesome too. Staff meetings, one of the highlights I wanted to share with you, we just in the last week, and this is kudos to Rob Matthews, our Director of Transportation, they also do PBIS, which is really cool. And that has been a group of people that has been really invested in supporting our students. Because we all know that the school day doesn't start and end just inside the classroom walls. It starts and ends for many of our students on the school bus. So it's really important that we bring our drivers along with this initiative too. And last week on Friday, one of our elementary PBIS specialists, Rossville here, and I were able to work with Rob and his drivers, and we walked through a data dialogue. So it's sharing behavior data that's happening on our buses or in our loops with our drivers and their staff, and taking a look at the patterns and trends that we're seeing on our buses, having our drivers talk about that data in small groups and notice and wonderings around the data, and then problem solve together on how we can better support students and bring those concerns back to the building so we can partner not only with our transportation but with our teaching staff too. So it's really cool to see that connection for them last week on Friday. There was a lot of really great feedback from our drivers about that. And then the last thing is our systems work. We've spent a lot of time really diving into creating systems to support our students. And on the next slide, it really just talks through the two that we have spent quite a bit of time on. So on the previous slide, we continue to have conversations about strengthening, thank you, our child study teams and how we have a referral system for students that might need some additional support and intervention. So we're working with our building teams on strengthening that process. Now you go to the next one. And then having consistent processes and language across the district is really important as we think about supporting our students. So two of the things that we've worked hard on to systematize over the last few years are the threat assessment process. So this would be when a threat comes in to others, or a general threat to the building. We have a consistent process for vetting that threat through and figuring out how to support that student, whether it's an action plan for return to school, supporting that family with maybe referrals, outside agency support, and ways like that. So our threat assessment process is continuing to evolve as we work to train the trainer model and being able to train all of our administrators, our diagnostic staff, and being able to support that work. And then the other really cool partnership we have is with Spectrum, now Corewell Health, in our blue envelope process. Suicide came up a lot today, and it's really important. And it's really important because our data says it's important to deal with that and address that. A lot of our students are experiencing harm, thoughts of self-harm and thoughts of suicide, and for us not to come alongside of that and provide support for our students would really be a travesty. So this Corewell Health Blue Envelope process really gives us consistent language in how we respond and support our students that are experiencing self-harm or suicidal ideation. So again, we continue to train our staff. And this upcoming school year, we are training our elementary certified staff in our Corewell Health partnership, as our county data is trending, unfortunately, where we're seeing suicidal ideation in our upper elementary grades as well. It's really sad, it's true. And so instead of just pretending that it's not, we're gonna come alongside of our elementary teachers and be able to give them the support that they need to. So next steps. Taking a look on this, one of our next steps with PBIS, so Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, is strengthening our Tier 1 implementation at all of our secondary buildings. We're working really hard to do that. And one of our goals for next school year is really working on an explicit teaching calendar, which would reflect, it's reflective of staff and student input. So at all levels, we've asked staff and students, what are some of the things that you're noticing in the building that are non-examples of SOARing, right? Being safe, owning it, acting responsibly, and being respectful. So our teaching calendar was designed with that staff and student input in mind. Number one, we want it to be meaningful for our students, and this is a really intentional way of doing that. And then Mandy's gonna talk about the next one.
So currently, we have a memorandum of understanding with Arbor Circle, who is a counseling agency nearby, and we are able to bring in a therapist so that our counseling staff, if they need to make a referral to a student who's unable to access counseling services otherwise, is able to receive that service in a safe and confidential space at school. That's been great. We've been lucky to have wonderful providers that have really been received well by students and families, and so our goal for next fall is to increase capacity with that so that we can have more time to hopefully expand our reach across the districts to some other families that may benefit from that support. That's what I think I was. Okay.
We're eating this microphone too, by the way, right in it. So staff capacity of the whole child. So we're continuing to offer professional learning opportunities for the whole child, recognizing that while academics are important, we would only be addressing part of what we're doing here in the educational setting. And so as we work towards that whole child and multi-tiered systems of support model and integration, it's recognizing and providing professional development and learning for our staff as we continue to support the whole child, both academically, socially, and behaviorally. So we're really excited to continue this work. I think we've done a lot of really amazing things, and I'm really excited about the work to come. I think that's it. Thank you for your time. Questions?
Thank you very much.
Any questions for Melissa?
Yeah, so when it comes to this type of data and the work you do, it's always a little bit mind-boggling to me how you assess that then going forward. Because obviously we're doing surveys about how the students are feeling, but is there a sense from everyone across the board as far as what they're hearing, even if it's just not really technically data, but it's, I guess you would call it, thank you, that was the word I was looking for. So tell me a little bit about that.
There's data points, obviously, with our screener survey, which is important because then it's not subjective as anecdotal data can be, right? I would say, though, we've lived a lot of life in these last, 4 or 5 years, and I think a lot of times we want to take a look at, when we talk about student mental health, we want to talk about, well, it's COVID. And I'm not downplaying the impact that COVID has had on our students' mental health by any means. It's absolutely part of the story. But data was trending in this direction pre-COVID too. And so I think anecdotally, I think if you walk the halls and you talk with our staff, they're gonna say, wow, we're dealing with a lot right now. And our kids are coming with complex needs. And so we have to be ready to respond to that in a complex way. So there's data points that are like hard and fast where we're getting that out of the screener. But I think if you talk to any educator right now, and I'm also married to one in a different district, he comes home with a lot of the same things that we're seeing here too. So whether you're looking at it in firm data or you're looking at it anecdotally, I would say that there is a definite feel that our students need support in this way.
Thank you.
The other questions?
Melissa, yeah, a couple. So Melissa, the mental health support, so how are students referred to a counselor if they don't, that's about they don't have access to one, we're gonna provide access to one. How do they get identified and referred to that counselor?
Yeah, so we have, his name's Grant from Arbor Circle, and he's awesome. He's housed here in our high school. So students that come down and work with their school counselor here and often need a higher level of support or more intensive level of support than what we can provide in the school building, we work through the referral process in that way. The other avenue is potentially working with our social workers, maybe a teacher has a recommendation that comes through, but most often they're vetted through our school counseling team here at the high school in conjunction with the parents.
Okay. And then, are you driving that?
Yeah.
Could you back up? Yeah, one more. Stop. No, other way. Stop. Okay, the threat assessment process, I can't read that out. So that's toward, are those threats toward the school or toward the individual student or both?
It could be both.
Okay.
So it's threats outside of self. So when you look at the two lanes up here, the Corewell blue envelope process and the safe steps would be addressing self-harm or suicidal ideation, so harm to self. And then on the left-hand side, any other threat, whether it's a threat to our building, a threat to another student, or perceived threat, that would get vetted through our threat assessment process. So phase one of that is a screener where we vet that threat through a screener. And then if we need more intensive follow-up, then it goes through a full threat assessment workup. And then from there, depending on where that goes, there's typically an action plan developed on how to re-enter that student, if safe to do so, into the school building. So it's a whole process that falls in line with our board policy on that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
You may have touched on this already, but could you just, Andrew, can you turn your, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewitt, could you turn your mic on? Thank you. Sorry. Could you may have mentioned this already, but could you just touch on the source of the data real quick at the beginning? How it was compiled and all that kind of stuff, just real quick, just snapshot. You maybe already touched on it.
I can start with you, sure. So in 2020,
Yeah.
we, a group of counseling and other staff looked at existing surveys. Namely, there's a state survey called the Youth Assessment Survey. And so items from that were taken to make a shorter version of the survey, so it pushes out through Google Forms.
Okay. And it was sent to all high school students, or what?
Correct, yes, and so at
Sorry,
this
probably
point,
already said this.
no, I don't think I did. So there is, at this point, there is an opt-out for parents, so parents are notified that the survey will be going out soon, and here's a copy of the survey, if you'd like for your child to be opted out, and so after that, the student receives the Google form through email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Next up, recognition of visitors and hearing of people present.
We have two, but I think one person might have left. The first person is Carl Weirson.
He's gone.
Okay. And then Gwen Stewart.
I'm a little scribbling on in here. Many of us were totally unaware that there were so many adult books in our library. And I'm just not really even sure why we have to consider that a legal issue. At any rate, I see them as landmines for our kids to walk into and to blow up on them before they realize that the book is traumatic for them. I would be asking that there be some way to tag these adult books on our Alexandria system so that we could assist our parents and our children in honoring their family values. Also, I wanted to thank you for streamlining the meeting format tonight on behalf of the people. It was getting crazier and crazier, and I just don't think it's totally unnecessary. I'm here tonight to lobby for restoring transparency and trust. I was drawn into attending board meetings in 2021 with the Julian Newman controversy. That's where I learned about FOIA requests. And in all my years in Hudsonville, part of them being an employee of the school, I don't think we ever, before 2020, ever had a FOIA request because it was totally unnecessary, nothing was hidden, and if you had a question, you could get it answered. Problems were dealt with, identified and dealt with. I have a notebook I call my traveling gal and show it's too heavy for me to have up here, where I collected several instances of unprofessional conduct by our middle school and high school teachers around that time. And I collected it because it's so unbelievable to me. I didn't write down any names. I crossed out any reference to the person who did it because I didn't want to make anything personal, and I just assumed it was a fluke and people would correct it. Oh my goodness, my time's going so fast. I've got a picture here of 100 diverse and anti-racist books that were dumped into our school without vetting, and nothing's ever been done about it by a special interest group. I sat through that millage presentation hubbub where we had 4 meetings of people berating our conservative members, and we know that it wasn't the conservative members who requested the revision of the vote. I think that's shameful that nobody spoke up. We've had a great history of mutual respect between the community and the school. Now we've got teachers standing up here berating parents for not giving them enough respect as professionals, as experts. They're not the only experts in the community. We've always had a wonderful back and forth, but it doesn't come carte blanche. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our discussion items, and first up is our Park Elementary bid review. Mr. Briggs?
I thought you were going to sit down for this.
On a table.
Chair. As high as it goes. It's going higher.
We can hear you, we're good.
All right. I think we can hear you.
This is on.
Okay.
So in the packet is the results of the Park Elementary bid solicitation. I would just like to take a moment to introduce our new project manager behind me here, Dan Madeline. Dan is taking Bryce's spot. Bryce is actually, we're going to call it a promotion, but Bryce is going to be leaving Michigan to head up the new OAK branch in Colorado. So we wish him all the best and now just great work. We look forward to the things Dan is going to do for us again because Dan has helped us out in the past. Actually, it's one of our very first, I think it was the first big project OAK. Dan helped us on an interior remodel at Bauer Elementary. It's very successful, and I know he will continue to do great things for Hudsonville. And Dan was primarily responsible for this bid process as well as the 4 other bids I'm going to review after Park Elementary. So just a little bit of background here. This is going to be funded by the proceeds of the bonds we sold, the result of the 2019 bond vote. We had great bidder participation again. As you look sure you've had time to look through the bid tab, especially in some of the bigger categories, electrical, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Just can't say enough about the work that OAK is doing to bring that value to our school, to bring to us a lot of really qualified and competent bidders. They not only bring the quantity, but just great bidders. So thank them for that work. And it's not easy. It's not just that they show up on the scene and it happens. They dedicate people to calling vendors, and also like to thank the vendors. There's a tremendous amount of work involved with putting together a bid on a project this size. It takes a lot of time, and so just thank them for that. And it's helping keep our project on budget, because this project is within the allocated funds, bond funds for the budget. So of just one piece I'd like to point out here, category 22, which is highlighted, we are still debating whether we're going to reject all the bids. We'd like the authority to do that if we need to, but we're going to talk to, we've already talked to one, and we've talked to them both, but we're going to talk to another one and see if we can negotiate something on the playground. So if we can't reach agreement, we will, with your approval, reject those bids and just put the project back out to bid. With the construction schedule, we're not starting till the fall anyways, so we've got time. We've got time to get that done. The real playground work won't occur till next spring and summer. So, yeah, the total value of the bids plus the allowance that we're asking for approval for, and we're going to be asking, this is the study part of it, but we're going to be requesting $7,203,956. Any questions on this project? It is a longer project. It is, probably a good 24 months of work, because it involves working on a building with kids in the building. There's not a lot of this project that is true addition. Most of it's going to be demoing and replacing the middle part, the big middle part of the building that connects the two wings. So it's going to be hard, but with the help of OAK and the great, should you approve the recommendation, the great bidders that we're bringing forth to you, I believe we'll have a successful project. So, any questions?
Pat, how does this come out with what we were anticipating budget-wise? Are we on track, over, under?
It's within budget. Yes.
What's the issue with the playground equipment?
Just the type of equipment we required. The bidders didn't bid the required equipment.
Got it.
I mean, it's a little bit in the equipment world. They believe their equipment is what we need, is best, and we have a with all due respect to them, we just have a difference of opinion based on our experience.
So tonight we would approve an allowance potentially, so that you could go out to bid and you would stay within that.
Right. Just in what the actual.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. The actual recommendation will come in June. But yeah. This is just studying the matter.
And just to be clear, if the playground equipment isn't adjusted or addressed by the time it goes to the board in June, it will not be on there. And then when the new bid comes for playground equipment, it could be December, it could be November, that's when we'll come back to the board. Okay, thank you.
That all folks who've worked with, or that OAK has worked with?
Yes. We talked through the category. Most of them we have experience with.
Okay.
And there were a couple that I asked Dan about, and he said, yeah, OAK said great experience with them.
Good list of bidders.
Yeah, it's impressive for a project like this.
Any other questions?
Good job.
They did a wonderful job. And one other thing of note, that it's based on OAK's recommendation. This project isn't kicking off in the summer. And we believe that had a lot to do with the success of the project. You know, getting its work, the summer is just crazy. I mean, just everybody wants everything done in the summer, and especially in the school world. And so the strategy was to kick it off in the fall. We believe that has a lot to do with the favorable economics of the bids.
And just to be clear, that's the park project. We are still doing a lot of work this summer.
Okay. Yeah. It's just park won't kick off till the summer.
That's smart. Good job.
Equipment bid review? So
Yes.
this is you, Mr. Briggs, again.
Sure. So on the prior page to the picture in your packet, you'll see the four, yes, so the four bids. So to help me, to help the staff, I asked OAK to bid these projects. In the past, some of these equipment projects have been bid by us, and it's just with the diversity here, the subject area. I mean, our staff, I'll talk about that later, but just the differences between these types of materials, it just was a lot to manage. So OAK agreed to bid these projects for us. We're going to do our own contracts. We're not going to do AAA contracts. We're going to issue purchase orders for these. But just the fact for them of getting this to developing the bid spec along with our staff and getting it out to the market has been a tremendous assist for these four diverse categories. The categories are weight room equipment, card room equipment, orchestra instruments, and band and choir instruments. We did each of these vendors is a preferred vendor. We didn't get any other bids. You could ask why. That would be a fair question. To some extent, there is a reluctance to bid, for instance, for band instruments to bid against Meyer Music. They've been in the district for years. There are other bidders in the state, other vendors in the state that I can't get to bid. I have remember a couple summers ago, probably 3, we bought new instruments for the marching band. There's another vendor in the state with a very prominent name that just said, you know, you're a Meyer district. I'm not going to waste my time and put it in there. You know, we've got great relationships with the districts we work with. Meyer works with you, and peers are certainly happy with Meyer's performance. They buy and get their instrument service that they buy for their individual students. These represent the instruments that stay at school. These aren't the instruments the kids take home. These are things that stay at school. Same with Granari House. I frequently get that pronunciation wrong. They do an excellent job with the orchestra, and they're right here in Hudsonville, and nobody chose to bid against them. Backing up the list, Sornex is a new vendor to us. They're very well established in the industry. In fact, their equipment is now in Zealand, Caledonia, and I believe it's South Christian. So yeah. They already have this equipment, and our bid spec for the new equipment, and Dr. Vanderjack, if you would just turn that. You'll see there, that is the layout for our new, I'm not supposed to call it the weight room, is the new performance room. It is, we've worked a lot on this, and I say we. I've sat and reviewed the information, but really our new, I don't know if he's the director of performance, director of strength, Mike Carbot, along with our athletic director, Ben Farkas, have put countless hours into that. You can see that the logos on the drop area there in front of this is a rigged system. I'm used to a rack system, which is a squat rack and a bench press. This is not that. The rack system that we've had here in Hudsonville for a long time can accommodate 2 athletes per station. This system can accommodate 3. So on both sides of that system, when it's a double rack, there are 3 athletes can be on one side, 3 on the other. Some of them are single racks, the ones that go along the wall. But this system just allows for a lot more athletes to participate at once. The original design for this project allowed for 16 weight racks. And now we have, with this new design, SOAR has helped us incorporate, we have 25 rigs. A rig is different than a rack. And it's an amazing thing. This is state of the art. It's going to be great for our student athletes. And these systems not only accommodate strength, but even more than that, they accommodate flexibility and speed. And they're not all set up to be just for the what's called the larger athletes. These systems accommodate gradients of the weights as low as 1.5 pounds. So it's a very, very flexible system, very durable system, and as you can see there, it's going to accommodate a number of athletes in this space.
Which is a little misleading because this area up here has a floor above it for cardio equipment.
Yes.
This area down here is open to the second floor. And if you look from here, technically, these are all windows along the back. You just can't, they're not in the drawing, and that's 32nd Avenue, just to give you an idea.
Is that field turf? Will we have it for
Yes.
like doing sprint work and stuff like that?
Yes.
Awesome.
Sled work.
So it's fun.
Yeah. So, and on the summary of the bids at the front, Mike has gone through the bids. Mike Carbot, our performance director, and we have he's come up with $80,500 of deductions and substitutions that will reduce the $621,156, and the same on with the cardio equipment. There'll be a reduction there of $35,106. But when it comes to you as a recommendation, their base bid will be part of the recommendation. So, I covered a lot there fast, and this system, both systems, the cardio system and the rig system, is just a lot safer for kids. Allows us a lot more flexibility, versatility, and has a far greater capacity. The big thing here is we can accommodate so many more athletes in the space. There literally can be 75 athletes performing at one time, just in the weight area, the performance area. Then there's all the other areas in that space where students can be performing.
So Pat, who else around here, whether it be college or high school, has this rig system? Have you seen it in work?
Yes. So Caledonia, Grand Rapids South Christian, and Zeeland have it in place, but there are other schools that are looking to buy it very soon.
Great, thank you.
So 2 of those 3 made the state finals last year, so I assume that's going to be the.
It is. It has been noted, yes, for sure.
That is the addendums, on the weights, is that the 80 and the 35? What are the 2 addendums on the weight systems?
Yes, for the most part, there are, it's just areas, different pieces of equipment that we can use an alternate piece of equipment. They're just alternate manufactured, and we don't have to use the SOAR piece.
Some of the SOAR equipment has add-ons to it that we don't feel we need right away, or we have other equipment that we can use at that time. So instead of them throwing in the bonus package, we can cut that out for now. If we want to add it later based on the current equipment we have, we can do that.
Same question on the orchestra and band.
In the orchestra and band area, our intent isn't to have all brand new equipment in the 5-6 building, and then have the students move up to older equipment in the middle schools. So we've taken a mix. There are some places where even, for instance, certain instrument is more size and age appropriate for a 6th grader. So we'll move that to the 5-6 building, and we'll purchase where that equipment was taken from. If it was Riley or Riley and Baldwin, we'll put the new equipment at Riley and Baldwin. There also has been an increase, significant increase in the orchestra numbers at 6th grade this year. And I'd be remiss in talking about the band and orchestra piece of the work of Sarah Leonard and Zach Jacobs. They've done amazing work. They put hours and hours and hours, along with Melanie McClure, the new 5-6 principal. Just countless hours working with, and I'm forgetting a lot of other staff. I'll leave it to Zach, Sarah, and Melanie. But it's really been a team effort of all the staff at those buildings to come up with a good list of equipment. So some of this equipment is going to be new for Baldwin. Some of this equipment is going to be new for Riley.
Yeah. One of the things we had talked about a couple of years ago was a more defined plan on when
replacements.
Yes.
Yes.
Is this now that was current stuff in the high school as well. So is that in place? Is this follow that? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So we knew we had this coming when we did the work with the marching band. We frankly have more work to do in the high school orchestra area, but this is a piece of it. When that original request came, Doug and I, Dr. Vanderjack and I looked at a lot of requests for all levels, and we forestalled some of the purchases back then to wrap it into a bond purchase now.
Okay.
But yeah, that's something that the department's still working on, and they'll continue to work on it. Our replacement schedule, that's probably something that we're going to look at as in next school year to upgrade the equipment even more.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
The photos here, are they all of the weight of the performance
Yes.
equipment?
Yes.
And so what does the cardio equipment involve, like high levels, just curious?
Yes. There is, the traditional treadmills, climbers, ellipticals, and there's some other equipment. Yes.
And you said OAK went out for bid on these things, so are the costs marked out based on their bids, or do we?
No, we no.
Is it typical? Is that so? Like to go back to the 5-6 building, we talked about furniture and stuff in there. Do those costs get marked up? Or is it separate contracts? So there's no markup.
Right. Anything, they act as our agent in this type of when a pure construction manager agreement.
Sure.
It's not the general contractor marking things up. Yeah. So we really hold the contracts with all the bidders.
Cool.
There's no markup. They have a fee.
Sure.
That's outside of that, but that's another good question.
So does SOAR next, do they come and install the stuff too, or just so we
Yes.
do that? Okay, cool. All right. Thank you.
They put it together.
Any other questions?
Good questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Briggs.
Thank you. Thanks for accommodating my move down here.
DAC surveys.
Yes, we've been doing some work with our diversity and advocacy group over the past, I think about 2 years, a year and a half. And I know there's several members that are here, and one of our goals was to try to gather more feedback from our students, from our parents, from our teachers regarding this work. Some of it will come from our SOAR data, which we're going to look at next. But then there's some additional questions. We're looking at some short surveys on that. So I want to share those with the board. There is one that we still are finalizing as a group. We ran out of time last Tuesday, and we were working through it. So I want to share those with the board, kind of where we are.
And really the whole premise behind it is to show our students kind of a video of what we're looking at doing, so they can understand, and then there'll be a follow-up survey as part of it. So our whole goal was to try to tell the story and then collect data. So I want to share the video. I think you can see it. I'm going to find out right here. In the red. I'll take a pull up the video that I have up here somewhere. I saw the tab open. So here's an upper note for elementary. We're really looking at grades 3 through 5. So we want to get some feedback from them. So here's a elementary video, and I don't know if the sound works.
Did you know that Hudsonville has a diversity and advocacy committee? The topics collect specific data from our school can help make decisions to make our district even better.
There are laws that require schools to be free of harassment and discrimination.
Harassment and discrimination means repeatedly treating people unkindly because of their differences.
Harassment and discrimination happens in schools across the country, and it happens in Hudsonville.
Our data shows that it's happening at our high school, in our middle schools, and in our elementary schools.
The Diversity and Advocacy Committee, or DAC, is committed to collecting better data for our schools, implementing proactive measures, and improving our schools for our students.
The DAC is just one of the many ways our Hudsonville staff and community is working to make our schools the very best they can be for our students.
If you are experiencing harassment or discrimination, please reach out to a teacher or trusted adult.
So that was our elementary video. We have one very similar with some high school students that did something very similar. So following that, then the students would fill out a survey. So here's an elementary survey, I believe it's in your packet. Goes through and gets some information about where they go to school, their grade level, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Have you experienced harassment in the school by another student? If you feel like you were harassed, do you feel you were harassed because of any of the following? And you can kind of see what's on there: race, ethnicity, gender, disability, religion, none, or other. Again, we're trying to get some baseline data from specifically that age group, and do the same thing at the middle school and the high school. So you can go through the survey and look through. I do want to thank, I know there's a few members that are here, I don't know if you want to add anything. But it was a great dialogue with a group of, I would say, a diverse group of people in the room. Some people have different views on this, and I think it was a great dialogue that we had as a team to say, how can we get some more information? What does that mean, the action behind it? We're not there yet. We want to get data first to find out, is there something, is there a root, is there a, it's a lot different if we look at, there's a huge issue at 6th grade versus an issue at 5th grade. It could be a transition middle school. Does it look different at Riley than it does at Baldwin? That's a different conversation. Does it look different for one gender or that? Those are conversations we still have to have, but we'd like to collect some data by the end of the year. Again, we're still finalizing the staff survey, but we have the parent survey and the student survey. And I know there's a draft of I think there's a draft of the staff survey in there. I do want to say that that is not fine-tuned yet, and we'll send it to the board before we send it out to our staff. We do have a little bit of time to send it to our staff. They're still here for at least another month. But we don't plan on sending it to our seniors who are done technically they have a half day tomorrow and they're done. I don't know how to say it. So, but we want to get to the rest of our kids to get some data before we head into the summer. We meet for one more time. We don't meet over the summer, but that'll give us something to dive into come fall. So I want to share the surveys with the board. See if you had any questions, suggestions, comments, feedback. Anything is encouraged. I'm not going to spend, because of time, I'm not going to spend, but you've had a chance to look at them. I don't know if you have any questions.
Just a quick question on the video. So you show the video to the students immediately before the survey?
Well, to show the students in context of why we're asking, we wanted to, we send so many surveys out without providing a story.
Okay.
And at the upper L, it's a little bit harder. We also want to be cautious of a teacher talking about this conversation differently with one classroom versus a different teacher. So we want to have the same message to all of the kids in the upper L. We want to have the same message to middle school. And I have to be honest with you, the elementary video is pretty good. We might just use that for second for middle school. The kids did a nice job. Now the high school one, we have the high school, it's the same content, but they're high school kids.
Sure.
But the elementary one's pretty good. So that was the idea, it's having the same message, so there's a story behind it.
Right.
We didn't, and the same thing when we have you saw the parent survey that's out there. It gives more of a descriptor on what we're trying to accomplish, and it talks about some key terms in it too, for parents when they're filling it out. So
I just think about my 8-year-old watching the video and hearing those things, how it would influence some of the responses to the survey.
And even
I thought it was
harassment.
Right.
Word harassment is a big word for elementary kids.
I think the video was very well done. I just wonder the timing of it, or if you have a student standing up there saying harassment's a real thing, and things like that, which those are true statements, is that going to influence their perception while they take the survey? It's
a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't understand what I'm saying about this.
I think we're equally as concerned without telling the story to why kids forget about what happened last Thursday on the playground because they're focused on what happened yesterday on the playground. I don't know. And we were fairly intentional about the difference between bullying, which is a fairly common term, and the definition of bullying versus harassment is different.
Sure.
And trying to educate also. Yep.
I have the same concern as Andrew just expressed. It seemed to be like it was leading the kids somewhere with the question, or not a question, the statement. And I don't think we should be doing that before the kids are taking the survey. I don't think that's right.
You think that the video leads the kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
It basically tells them that we've got this, going on here, and if a child doesn't believe that it's going on, well, what am I missing here? I think that's a big deal.
So what happens if a child takes a survey and doesn't recognize the verbiage? I mean, that's the thing too. Do they go to the teacher and say, I don't know what this means? I suppose they could. What I found very cute, to bring some humor to all this, very cute, is that when you looked at the diversity of what they were wearing, I thought if their parents see it, they'd be like, oh my gosh, you did that with that sweatshirt on? Or, I'd say, gosh, I thought that was very cute. I would probably have a little bit of that same question on the middle school, high school survey. I don't know if all middle schools would necessarily know what gender identity or sexual orientation would mean. And so the one difficulty with that would be is, do they ask somebody what that means, or do they know? I don't know. I don't have a middle school. That would be my only question with that survey, with that age group.
Right. I will say that definition is pulled directly from what is classified as our anti-harassment policy. That's right from board policy.
Right. But whether a middle school student would know what those words mean in order to answer the question, I guess is what I'm saying. So.
Is this our last time to discuss this, or will it be another time?
The only reason
I don't want to say I don't care that seems strong.
It's the last day of school, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I only asked the question because of what Dawn has said and what Chad has said, that it's awfully difficult to do a survey without offering information. And it's hard to offer information and not have it print. So, I just want to be sure they're happy with what they've asked for here.
I appreciate the thought into the video. I totally like the consistent message of it, but you raise a good point. There's a couple other, I don't know if leading is the right one. When they're talking about religion, we list 3 religions, etc. That could be a little leading to some people. I don't know if we would just kind of leave that one. We all get what religion is.
We spent a lot of time talking about that.
This one, it's extra reform, wasn't it?
Okay. So that one, again, I'm sure you did. That just jumped out at me.
Which survey are you looking at?
That's for the elementary one. And again, I know you guys put a lot of thought into this, so I'm not trying to nitpick. It's just.
Well, we spent an hour and a half meeting that we tried to get done early because it was a beautiful night. I think we didn't even get done. We probably have to get back. I don't know. I know a couple of you are here. If you want to add anything, we've been I think we've worked well as it. There's a lot to work through and trying to get more information.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to we're not trying to mislead students, we're not trying to give them information to give, we're trying to just get some additional data. Now, we also know some of the data we're gonna get from our SOAR 5 survey, but these are specific to what our task was at hand as a group. And we have identified truly that the initial data identifies that there is an issue. We're trying to dig into where is the issue and how can we then address it. And that's a heavy lift.
For sure, the assumption would be that we're gonna probably administer this yearly to gather some longitudinal data then?
Yes, but I also know that if we ask a survey that doesn't give us quality data, we might have to tweak the survey. Because I don't wanna ask, if it's a bad survey, if it's like to Greg's point, if there's a question that's misleading or something, I don't wanna ask it again and keep misleading them, it's gonna.
That's why I just thought, like, if we just.
But it'd be nice to have longitudinal data to show that our actions providing some kind of a positive outcome.
For sure, again, the whole premise is great. It's like if we just took a little extra time, it sounds like you've already taken a ton of time on it, but making sure these are the questions we want to ask next year and the next. Yeah. The only other thought I had on that is we have it broken up 3rd, 4th, 5th. Well, next year if we administer this.
Yeah, we talked about it. We'll cross that bridge later. That's a good question.
All right.
So, but for now, it would only go to 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. The intent was to issue it this year at the end of the year, and then we'll figure out the 5, 6 building, because that could add a whole nother layer of transition. I mean, maybe our some of this conversation is, to some degree, people think when you go to another building, there's that sense of quote unquote, it could be a honeymoon period where you don't see as much, and then as time goes on, 6th graders are nicer than 8th graders. I don't know that. To me, I taught in middle school, and I lived it, but I also don't know if that's what kids are experiencing.
Well, that's what I was getting towards. We've got an interesting case study starting next year with all of the data that we went over earlier, about mental health things, the SOAR data we're going to look at. I'm really interested to see how things play out between the two buildings and having the grade differences.
Yeah. And another approach, and we can meet I know we're looking at a subgroup to get together potentially prior to, because we're going to have another meeting for a little while, but to maybe have a conversation on, maybe that video is aired at a certain time and then a little bit later, a survey is administered and up from there.
I think so. I think that's.
Give it some time.
I think so. I know that my kids would respond to the survey differently before and after that video. That's just me.
Yeah.
I think the video is great,
But if they watch it on a Friday and the survey felt the following week or the week after, it might look differently.
Yeah, I don't think it's misleading, I think it's leading, that's my concern. And so, that's why I'm opposed to that, being put out there for the kids. And I'm sure I'm gonna hear from some parents about it.
Yeah, just so you know, clearly, if a parent wants to opt their child out, like any other survey, they don't have to take the survey, like anything we've done. So. We definitely would encourage them because we'd like to get some good feedback, but we're not gonna force somebody to fill out a survey if they have concerns. And we would, we believe the survey is in pretty good shape. I think we'll have one more go at it with a handful of people to make sure at least the student one, and this will be shared with parents as well as the video prior to them, basically. That way they could notify the building principal if they did not want to take the survey with them.
I guess one of the things that concerned me a little bit also is the fact that if a child has a question on gender or something like that, and a teacher might be put into the position of responding to a question that, and I'm not saying they give a wrong answer, but they may give an answer that no matter what they say, a parent may disagree with it. And so we're putting our teachers in a position of either from this side or from this side, possibly having a concern about them asking how they answer that question. And I think that's something that's very real right now. And we have extremely progressive people, we have extremely conservative people. And to put a teacher in that position, has that been discussed? Has that been thought of? So what's the answer?
I think our teachers do an amazing job navigating conversations with kids on a daily basis.
Yeah,
and
so
I
do I.
think I would That's part of the reason why we wanted to put a video together that provides a consistent message. It's part of the reason why the questions in there. We tried to keep them so that the descriptors are there to help teachers navigate how to answer that question.
That's my concern, and I still have it as a concern.
Dr. Vanderjagt, on the parent guardian survey, does it go to all parents in the district or is it just a sampling?
All parents.
So then the first question is, do you have students in your district? If they vote no, does the survey like close on them?
No, but I think good idea.
It's important, like if they don't, why would they?
Well, I think when we initially did this though, we were looking at parent community. We didn't catch that. I think we went through. Initially we talked about parent and community, and then as the discussion went along, it was like, you know what, let's find out what our parents that are living it are feeling. Again, this is not, this is trying to gather data. So.
You just add a comment about the administration too. Is something that we discussed as a potential support is that the video and the survey and the examples in the survey are meant to help be reference points for the teacher, but we also talked about having just a script, like when we're administering our state assessment, it always comes with like an administrator's guide to say this is how you introduce it. So we can provide some uniformity that way as well, just as suggestive language. Because we do anticipate that there may be some questions, but as Dr. Vanderjagt said, I think they're already fielding some of those questions, and we have some good examples of how teachers have navigated that so far too.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I like that idea. Overall, maybe provide some consistency and support for the teachers. So seems like a wise approach.
Other questions?
If we have more, I'm looking at the clock. It's going to keep moving.
I know that.
We got all that.
No, I know, but if we have more, I know we don't have all night. I don't know. If we have more questions or comments on this, can we get them to you later this week, or?
Please, that'd be great. Yeah.
By when would you like feedback?
It'd be nice to get it by Wednesday night, Thursday morning, if possible, a couple days.
Questions?
It's almost Tuesday, or no, what day is it? Is it Tuesday yet? It's getting close.
All right, we're gonna move on to SOAR data survey.
Great, so we had an opportunity to collect data for our strategic planning, the SOAR data. I'd like to share that with the board. I shared it with you last week. I will tell you, in the folder that had the information for the parent and the staff survey, the student information is in there now. I failed to let you know that on Friday. I just forgot. There's a lot going on Friday. So, but the student information in there. Please, I will tell you that this data is very helpful. There's a lot of feedback in it. To give it some context, we asked the same survey with some tweaks as you went through and looked at the survey 3 years ago. That was right when COVID kicked off. So last time we had a lot of comments about masks, about quarantine, about technology, because kids were just getting their computers at home. I would encourage you to go through and look at this data. To give you an example of the data, you can kind of see an idea from our staff standpoint. We had 619 staff members that filled out this survey. It gives you a general idea of what that looks like. 341 teachers, which is a substantial number of staff members that filled this out. I would encourage you to look at the data. Each part of the data, you can see some of the highlights that'll go through. There's summary of the findings. That's about 5 pages of information that kind of just highlights some of the numbers. And then you start to get into some of the data. If you recall, those of you that were here 3 years ago when we do strategic planning, we then look at this data, and here's just an example of something we will look at. Gotta get there. So here's a conversation that we'll look at and say, okay, as a culture and work environment, you belong at your school, you're proud to be a staff member, and we look at that data, and we'll compare each one of these. If you go down a little bit farther, you can see that you get into, just a second, there's a lot. So here's the same question, you belong at school. It compares 2020 to 2023. So you can start to see where the data fluctuates between the two. I would encourage you to look at each one of those. This data is will be posted on our website tomorrow. We'll post the staff, the student, and the community survey results. These are the summary of findings. And then the verbatim comments will also be posted. So people can review those if they like. There's several hundred pages, which some of you may have started to look at, and then we go from there. This summer, in August, so the first week of August, our administrative team reports back on August 1, and then in the afternoon, we start strategic planning. So you'll get an agenda of when strategic planning will begin. It's Tuesday afternoon. We have 4 sessions. We have Tuesday afternoon, 2 on Wednesday, and Thursday morning. 3 of the sessions are strategic planning, and then we have some other administrative business to go through with other trainings that we have to do. There's some security trainings, or some first aid trainings, or some health trainings, those kind of things. I would encourage each board member to attend the strategic planning. You'll be assigned to a group. We have 5 groups that we manage this data. It's very similar to what we've done before. We look at the old data, we look at the current data, and we start to have discussions on what our old plan was and where we start to formulate ideas for a new plan. The idea out of the strategic planning session, that 3-day window, is to come out with a draft of a strategic plan that we want to start. We have priorities on there. We want to start to finalize and clean up so we can share that with the Board of Education. Ultimately, if you recall, the plan would be to ask the board to approve it as a first draft in November, and then a final draft in December, and then it starts to go into effect in January. That'll keep us on our 3-year plan with strategic planning. Again, right now, our strategic plan starting in January of 2024 is a blank slate. We want to look at our current plan, what was done, what was not done, what we should keep doing, what we should not keep doing. The data then breaks it up, and we break it up between human resources. We break it up with special education, curriculum, finance, and business, and then co-curricular activities. We put all those in there, 5 different groups, and go from there. They're led by each one of the amazing team that's here, as well as Mark Heedle and Rebecca Fabiano help lead the co-curricular. That has to do a lot over sports and some of the facilities that we have to go from there. So this data is rough because when we look at it, we start breaking it down. Each group will get a series of pages to focus on when they go through their planning, and they start just having dialogue of what that looks like. Again, our plan, our strategic plan, is not to have objectives that we have to accomplish. Our plan is to guide our discussion as a district for what we want to focus on. So we're not going to put on there, we're going to have another softball field when this is all said and done. But we might very well evaluate facilities regarding outdoor activities. The outcome could be a softball field, or a baseball field, or turf, or whatever. But that's not on there. It's really just focusing on overall. Let's evaluate what we're doing and go from there. Sometimes you have conversations, and we got some feedback from some parents that were very thankful that the focus groups generated the right questions and they felt heard on the survey. We heard that at our inter-school advisory last week, Friday, which was nice. Now we have to take the data and run with it and go from there. So check your calendars, not tonight, check your calendars and see how that works out into your schedule. Anytime you can be available would be helpful from that standpoint. Any questions on this survey? There's a lot there. There's 700 probably pages plus.
So we're not touching this until August?
Correct. Yep. Gives the board a chance to look at it. Obviously, there'll be community members that are welcome to look at it. Our administrative team, when they get back together, they'll dive into this. And instead of looking at, what is this? I can't read anymore. This is 170 pages. They'll get a list of probably 30 to 40 pages to look at as a group, because some questions pertain to certain areas that don't pertain to others. Like, do you belong at school is probably not a co-curricular conversation, but it could very well be a HR conversation. It could be I guess it could fall maybe under even special services. It depends on how you look at it. So, yeah.
Would it be helpful for board members as they're going through this to maybe come up with their 2 or 3 takeaways from each of the surveys? And that's kind of in my mind, based on some of the data that I've read, I felt like there were several themes. And I know for me, if I read a lot of that now, I might sort of forget come August. That to me was helpful based on what we were involved in prior, to try to see themes that you may think could become a goal.
That is a great idea. And then when you get a chance to be in part of that planning process, you bring those things up.
Yes.
Yep. you brainstorm on those ideas, and that's exactly what we're doing.
So the specific dates you wanted us to give you in terms of availability?
I will email out those dates. It's the first week of August. I'm pretty sure it's the first, second, and third, but I have to. Is that right?
Thank you.
I just don't know which morning. There's morning, afternoons. We gotta get the agenda squared away.
A vacation.
Are we gonna be talking about these categories that are here? Or are we also gonna be pulling in some of the comments that people had?
Oh,
Okay.
everything's a conversation.
But how is the agenda set?
So the agenda set is basically there's a group of people in each committee. So I'll use Pat as an example since he's here. Pat will have a group of about 5 or 6 administrators on his team. There'll be 1 or 2 board members assigned to his team.
Okay.
That team will get all 6 of these documents.
Okay.
And they will get a chance to look at them and have conversations about, okay, how does this pertain to our focus? So they talk about, the first thing they do is look at the current plan that we're finishing up. What are some things on there that we're not going to accomplish, but we should probably continue to talk about? One of the major issues in the last strategic plan was the control systems for the district. That's been a heavy lift, and I'm not going to say they're going to check that box off at the end of the year, but it's slated in part of the bond issue. So that can kind of be done. They're done with that. What other things will come out of this data? They'll look through the data. They'll get a list of, I will give them a list of here's the survey. Here are some page numbers to focus on.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they can't deviate from the page numbers and find something else and be like, hey, I heard about this. And then what they will do is they'll go through the data, have conversations, and all they do is brainstorm. They'll take chart paper, they'll come up with 30 ideas of what they're thinking about. They'll present those 30 ideas, and other people in the room will say, that's not a good idea, or you forgot about this. Or our group was talking about this, that's ours, not yours. And they start to kind of clean it up, then they go back to the drawing board as a team. Then when they get all done, they're going to probably have 20 or 30 pretty good ones. When that's done, they'll present their 20 or 30 pretty good ones, and everybody in the room, including the board that's there, gets to vote on where they think it's a priority. Your vote is just as important as my vote, as Amy's, anybody that's in the room. And all it does is that it generates numbers about where they think priorities are. Then he goes back to his group with those numbers and determines, do we agree or not agree with what other people are saying? And go from there. So you get feedback from about 30 people in the room, and then you say, okay, now what do we think might be a short-term priority, maybe a long-term, maybe an ongoing goal? And there'll be some things that we think are important to the district, but don't even make the strategic plan. That doesn't mean we can't do them, it's just not in the plan. When we crafted our last plan, COVID didn't really exist. We didn't know what was going on. We were in the middle of doing this, trying to draft, and we had no idea all these terminologies that would be out there that we'd have to walk through. So it's involved.
That's really helpful. And the reason I asked the question is just to make sure that at the end of the process, we understand how we got to where we started, so that we can look back and
It all starts with the focus groups from the community members, the business leaders, the staff, and the students.
Perfect.
Which generate the questionnaires, which generates the data, which then goes in to dive into the data and start making the list. And again, that's a lot of brainstorming. So, thank you.
It's a really great process. I mean, and it seems like we weren't able to get together the same way.
We did it under tents last time.
Yeah, I'm saying so.
Couldn't fit too many people in the
Yeah,
group.
we weren't as involved, but the time before, it's just a great process and just a great think tank. And again, filtering all of that information down and coming to a consensus. It's as much as you can be there, it's a great process. I know we all have busy schedules, Nana days, all those good things, but if you can make it, it's a huge. No, you don't want these ones. You make a little noise.
Snacks.
We'll make part of that.
Sean, if you have snacks, I'll be in your group with your kids.
Okay. That's awesome.
Any questions? So we're gonna we'll get this data posted on our website so people can take a look at it also, because I know there's community members that would like to look at it.
Okay. Trip request.
Sorry, it's in here. We're looking at 2 trip requests for our East Coast trips. So it's the same trips as before, the East Coast trips they take every year. The first one is for, let me get my glasses. East Coast trip for Baldwin, kind of goes through the same idea, and then you've got Riley's East Coast trip. Nothing's new, any questions? Sorry, we do this every year.
So our next meeting is.
I know, you're gonna ask that, is on the 8th, and they leave the 7th, correct?
No, but it's for next year.
It says 2023, but it's for 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We need special meetings. Another one? Okay.
Oh, you know what? Riley's did it right. I think Baldwin's is wrong. If you look at Riley's, they leave on yeah. Baldwin's is not correct. Riley's is correct.
Yeah.
So we'll let Riley go this year until Baldwin's.
Yeah.
All right, any questions? on
There's
the
nothing
charts?
changed though to it, so I apologize.
All right, next up, the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District Resolution designating the district's election representative and candidates.
That's
Can you take this one? Okay,
That's
so
you,
we have
sorry.
to-
Yeah,
So we have to identify 2 people, one who will serve as a primary, someone who will serve as an alternate, and we have to identify 2 candidates. And candidates have been emailing us.
I've had too many emails to read today.
Can we do, real quick, sorry, can I
Go ahead.
Okay.
This is discussion.
Okay, good, just want to make sure. So the people we identify to represent the rest of the board, they would need to be present on June 5, is that correct? For the vote? Is that correct?
So in other words, whoever we nominate, do they then attend a meeting, or do, I know,
Yeah, it
Two
was
years ago,
different
it was
during
COVID,
COVID.
yeah.
But in the past, I've gone before, we usually have to attend, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think Robin sends who we wanna vote for beforehand. I remember when I got there, they already knew who we were gonna vote for, it was just a matter of having to go. Yeah,
Probably if they
I didn't have to do anything, I just had to show up. And I think they fed me dinner too, so if that's any incentive.
Enticing to go.
But I think it was just a box lunch, but it wasn't like a plate dinner.
So I'm confused. Are we discussing those 2
We have
items?
to discuss it, we can't vote on it until we have the next.
Yeah, I think-
special.
Right, okay, so we are,
Discuss
yep, I got it. So, we're gonna discuss them here, then we're going to adjourn and then go into the next
Yeah.
meeting and actually take the vote.
Yeah.
Got it.
We need 2 separate meetings. The
Understand.
easiest way to do it is do it the same way.
I got it.
So really, we need to do 2 things under item 6. We first have to say who from our board is
Yes.
going, and then who
Who
we
you
want
want.
that person to say.
So who would like to go? Any volunteers, or do you need to be voluntold?
It is June 5, correct?
Yes.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Andrew, do you wanna be our primary, and then we'll identify an alternate?
I'll leave that to the board to decide.
So,
Just kidding, I'm just looking at my calendar. I'll be the primary.
okay.
And I can be the alternate.
Okay, so Andrew will be the primary, Don will be the alternate. Then we need to talk about who we want for candidates.
I worked with Randy Skipper before on the boards, and I find him to be very steady, and he's been around a lot. In looking at some of the other ones, same thing for, what's his name, Mark, that he has been on other boards before.
See, and I was looking at Roger and Vanessa, some new blood.
I'm gonna be frank, my concern about that is, I think there's some danger there that the OAISD board is gonna end up in some messy waters, because it appears to be a pattern, in Ottawa County.
Is there some negative pattern there that I don't
Yes.
know about?
I do think one of them has publicly stated that they're affiliated in some way, shape, or form with Ottawa Impact.
Okay.
And there's been some other just independent research, not validated by anybody else, but just some other signs from my perspective that showed some definite political interests.
That would cause me some anxiety. I mean, the association with Ottawa
Yeah,
caused
me
me some
too.
anxiety.
I had looked at the letters that they had sent to the board,
Mhm.
so I'm going off of.
Yeah, I share the same concern. So the same threads in the email from them. So and I also echo Dawn's comments about Roger. Know him a little bit.
Randy.
Randy, excuse me, I know him a little bit. He's been a steady hand on that board for a while.
So we need to vote for one?
Two.
Okay, and Randy was one you were recommending, Ken and Dawn.
Mark Eichholt.
Oh, okay.
Eichholt. Those are my thoughts for those two.
Okay, and
I agree with those two as well.
what was your thought, Barb?
I was looking at Roger and Vanessa based on what they sent the board.
What's Vanessa's last name?
Wilhelm?
Okay.
There was one person on the list that's not eligible because they from
Eric
Zealand.
Miller.
Yeah, because there are two people
Too
in
many.
Zealand, which is, I'm not interested, I didn't know that before he said that.
Yeah.
Stack the deck.
From a practical standpoint, how do they influence anything we do or don't do?
Is that that easy?
Their board meetings are much different than local.
But I mean, they don't
Especially
really,
the
they don't,
Advocacy board.
can you think of any time in the past, whatever, that
Sure.
they've influenced the decision that
Yeah.
you made as a board, like?
Well, for one thing, the ISD obviously provides professional support to all the school districts.
Mhm.
So probably determining who they have come in.
Mhm.
Any decision that's gonna be made for all schools in Ottawa County with respect to the overarching ISD is gonna be made by this board.
Right.
So, can I point to a specific example? No, but obviously they are part of our educational system in Ottawa County.
Right. Do they determine, and I don't know the answer, so do they determine if we get funding or not? Or?
They can, there are Ottawa ballot issues that come
Okay.
through all of Ottawa County.
Okay.
There's special ed villages that come through Ottawa County and goes through that board.
But they couldn't say Zealand's getting this much and Hudsonville's getting this much -5.
Well, there's technically, when it comes to some of the budgets, that could happen as they allocate dollars. It's not that simple.
Right.
But there are ways that can change how they allocate monies through their budget process. And that governing board is no different than this governing board when it comes to those conversations.
So is the biggest effect they can have on us funding?
There's all sorts of, they have jurisdiction over the county,
Okay.
right? It could be,
Yeah.
there could be any kind of village issue, there could be allocation, realignment of districts, joint funds and services that we're large enough where we don't have to use the ISD for most of our services that we provide.
Sure.
Some districts do.
And the reason I'm asking the question is because I was derelict in not doing what I should have done, really looked into these hundreds of people who want to do this, so that's why I'm asking the question, probably should have done more.
How many people? I thought there were 5 on
I
the
got hundreds of emails.
Yeah.
The actual number of people is 5, and the problem is,
It's really only 4, right?
yeah, this is the first time in 12 years that anybody's really cared, other than 1 or 2 people emailing. So,
I'm just really glad that they emailed all of you.
But I think so Doug, I think it's safe to say, tell me if I'm wrong, but we've had a good relationship with the ISD over the years, we still do. We've, in the past, we've had no significant issues with the ISD, they've been fair, they've been open, they've been, there hasn't been that favoritism that you highlight, Greg, about New Zealand this and some of that and West Ottawa that. It's been a good, steady, solid relationship. I think the ISDs, tell me if I'm wrong, but respected amongst the big local superintendents, yourself and your counterparts. I mean, there's open, candid discussion. So, and my point there being that it's been a good working relationship, a good positive relationship, beneficial for the kids, which is kind of a reason, back to Dawn's original point, some folks that maybe are looking at some things with some different agendas are okay, but maybe not, in my opinion, maybe not with the best interest of kids at heart. It's more about political agendas, quite frankly. So that's the concern that I have.
That's my concern too. And
Was there somebody that you thought had a political agenda, Andrew?
yes,
Who?
Roger.
and I think Wilhelm too, maybe not as overtly.
Well, I'm I agree.
Do you know them or just?
I don't know any of them, and that's why I'm hesitant to say some of these things publicly. It's based on just what I'm looking at online, like.
Or what people have said to us.
Correct.
Does anybody else know? Do you know?
No, I don't, I go to the meetings when they have them, by the way, they had a delightful meeting with a brain specialist, this few weeks ago, but I don't think we were, any of us were able to go. I'm on that board now, I think.
Not the head board, but the gathering of the school board representatives.
Yeah, I went there, so I didn't know what I was doing, but I was there, but it
You
was.
found yourself there.
I was there, didn't have to order anything. But anyway, she did a marvelous job of talking about the development of the human brain.
Who was that?
I couldn't tell you the name, but I can send it to you, but she would actually be a worthwhile speaker for us. Just a couple of things, I'll be short here. We did not allow our children any social media. Her children have no rights in the home. And she talked about the development of the frontal brain, which in the male child is not developed fully until they're 26 years old, and that's what controls the impulse control. But she was really very well presented, so. I don't know these people, so I just don't want anybody coming to this with a political agenda.
With that in mind, Vanessa Wilhelm's just on her Twitter account, she's got a link to Restore Ottawa. And it says, Restoring Ottawa County Politics, focusing on Grand Haven schools. So if you're talking about politics, I don't think she's our person.
Okay, well, so Ottawa impacts caused me a great deal of personal pain.
Yeah, so in that case,
Yeah.
are we voting?
No.
Okay.
We'll
vote the next meeting.
You go at the next meeting.
Which hopefully is 2 minutes.
Any further discussion on the candidates?
No.
All right, we move on to the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District General Fund Budget Resolution.
This is where we turn and look at Pat and say, Pat,
What do you think
can
of
you
that?
help and tell us? It's a
Still here?
lot of data to go through.
It's fine. There's nothing much.
Nothing unusual.
Nothing unusual.
Are there any questions on that then? Okay, hearing none, what we'll do is I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting and then we'll start the next meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Dawn,
Second that.
support from Nick, all in favor say yes?
Yes.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.